Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. And today with me, I have a, well, with me is a relative term because today with you, I'm here, we're over here. We're here in Ivy Studios. It's very confusing. We're over here in Ivy Studios and we're having a conversation about abstracts. Today with me, I have Zach and Austin from Ivy Studios, so Ivy Games, and I have Jesse from... Exactly, you're doing this again. From Quacklope. We'll throw links to all the things down below. And we had a whole bunch of different things planned. We had the videos, topics, and things we're going to do. There's a whole bunch of gameplays of a cool game called...
We've done some good stuff today.
Mythic Mischief. Those will be... We'll have links over to those as well when we can, but those will be over on Ivy Games or Ivy Studios. We'll find links to all these things. This particular video, you've already seen the title. It's What Makes a Game an Abstract. Assuming I didn't change it last minute to something completely different. But... It's kind of an off-the-cuff comment that was made here about what makes a game an abstract, and you reacted in a way that I was like, this is a fun video.
Look, I might have offhandedly said that one of your games is an abstract.
Which one?
And yeah, but let's starting baseline.
Okay, yeah. So like when we didn't set out to make an abstract with Mythic, right? Like we were just like we're making a game. It was based on a theme. Like it always started with theme. So Max is the third designer, who's sadly not here with us today, but. Like just set out to make a game that had like a really strong theme. It started from a theme, and then we get all the way through production. We're doing this, and then all of a sudden, I just one day realized, oh, I guess we've made an abstract game.
People start calling it an abstract.
Just like it came back to like, oh, like this is an abstract game. Interesting. I'm like, this is not an abstract game. Like this got a theme. Like we've got all this stuff around it, and that's where it came from its core. So I was like just shocked to find out, like, oh, is this an abstract game?
Then. What makes a game an abstract?
So, in my experience, and this is why we push back against it, an abstract is a game where the theme can be taken out and it plays almost exactly the same.
Okay.
And I know there are multiple definitions, but that was the definition we were working from.
Is Veiled Fate an abstract?
No.
If you take the theme away from Veiled Fate, does anything change?
See, I agree. It does not. And that's why I think it's a bad definition.
That's what I don't understand. Like, you could strip the theme away from like a lot of games.
Absolutely.
And so like, then are we just like opening it up and calling everything an abstract? And also, like,
I don't have
necessarily anything against an abstract game. I'm just like, I feel like there is like a weird stigma against abstract games, and it's just like, I don't know. I was honestly just like surprised. Like I think
Zach's abstract knowledge is very limited to like having played Azul once recently, and like hasn't played that many.
Azul has a theme. Are you kidding me? No, Azul is. I mean, go read the flavor text. It is all about tile. No, it's all about tile. Are you kidding me?
I thought.
Have you not dug in?
Okay, I have read it. I just don't think that the theme translates well to
under your definition. You're right. Azul is not an abstract.
I think we can all acknowledge to a certain extent that you can, with any game, like you said, any game you can strip the theme away. We have many examples. You have Terra Mystica and Gaia Project, which is basic two totally different games, well, two totally the same games with a different theme. You can take the theme away from almost anything, and it will play roughly the same. Now, there is a degree, and this is where you'll lean into flavor text, there is a degree where understanding the theme and the background for a game may help guide the gameplay.
Right.
If you understand what you're doing, it does give a degree of guidance, and that's where it does overlay, but you can still take it away and it still plays. Yeah. So we're back to the same question. What makes a game an abstract?
It's that uncomfortable middle ground, and your pushback is, if the definition gets too loose, everything becomes an abstract.
Exactly. Yeah, like where do you draw the line?
But really some things certainly are abstracted. Some things you can take the theme away, and if the mechanics are the same and they still work and they still operate and are still fun, I don't know if it's a problem to have it classified as an abstract. No. Some people like that puzzle.
No one's talking about the problem.
I know.
That's different entirely. I do agree with you, by the way, that there is a degree of like, oh, it's an abstract. I agree with you. I love abstracts. TAC, if you're not playing TAC, you should be playing TAC. Santorini is an amazing game. Azul, if it's an abstract, is a great game. There's a lot of amazing abstracts out there. But there is that mindset of, oh, it's an abstract.
Totally.
I don't honestly see it from that side. Like your pushback against abstracts, I might understand if the experience or the reference point is things like chess or checkers, the historical ones. For me, Jan loves abstracts. I've entered the hobby by loving theme and also really appreciating great abstracts and experiencing them through things like TAC.
And Kingdom Death Monster is basically an abstract.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, I mean, you could strip away the theme from that, and all you have is giant beasts in the center of a table, and they become display pieces.
Beasts
they're not
at
beasts.
that point.
They're just tomes.
They're like just stuff out on the board.
KDM is only abstracted because I failed to get it to the table. That's the issue. No, I've journeyed into the hobby. I've journeyed into the hobby through the lens of good abstracts, and so I don't carry a stigma with me around it. So, like when I said this is an abstract, I said that as a compliment.
No, totally. And I guess maybe I don't take it as like a diss. I just like didn't understand. Well, I'm like, if because this feels so thematic, because we've built up a world around it, like we've spent just a ton of time on like having the art have a point of view and have it like come from like just a really interesting place. We've built all of this, like we are in Mythic Mischief right now. Like that's how thematic it is to us.
Sure.
And so like, and in my frame of reference from you calling it an abstract is like your game has no theme and is not connected to theme. And like I really value that. Like I really value gameplay's connection to theme, and like the narratives and the worlds that we build around our games is really important. So you come at it and like, oh, it's just an abstract. You just threw this theme on, and it's like that's not true. But that's not everyone's like point of view on an abstract.
Yeah, and that brings us to there is a second definition for abstract games.
Sure.
And that is having perfect information.
Yeah.
Is that what makes an abstract?
Maybe.
Is Kalis an abstract?
That is another definition.
Russian railroads.
You've played more games than me, Alex.
Granted,
it's hard.
Russian railroads and Kalis are going to be good games with perfect information. Certainly, not certainly is the wrong word. In my opinion, not an abstract. So let's start with a baseline question. Do you, Austin, believe Veiled Fate is an abstract?
No, not
Do
at
you
all.
believe Mythic Mischief is an abstract?
I think, based on your definition...
I didn't give that definition. Do you believe Mythic Mischief is an abstract?
Based on a definition.
You're the one.
No.
You gave two
Yes or no question. Do you personally believe Mythic
I'm
Mischief
being
is
put
an
on the
abstract?
spot, and I'm okay with it. I personally believe that Mythic Mischief is a highly thematic abstract game.
And Zach, same questions. Veiled Fate is an abstract.
So, but definitions in Veiled Fate? No.
No. And Mythic Mischief?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do one at a time.
Yes.
What is it? And let's go back and forth. What is it about Mythic Mischief that has you saying, your own definitions, I'm not asking for past definitions. What is it about Mythic Mischief that makes you say it is an abstract?
All right, so most abstracts I've played have a grid. Mythic Mischief has a grid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most abstracts I have played have perfect information. Mythic Mischief has perfect information. I think where we start departing is the theme.
So
and how important it is for gameplay.
Let's go through each of those one at a time. Veiled Fate doesn't have a 5x5 grid.
It does not.
It effectively has a grid.
It does. It
Effectively
has the
speaking, it
7
has a grid.
regions and
And you move from
every
each
zone
region to
within
each
the
region.
yeah.
Okay. Veiled Fate does not have perfect information at all. So do we know any abstracts that don't have perfect information? Any standard abstracts that don't have perfect information?
Well, I would call, so there's a few that have, like Totem is a game that I covered maybe 6 months ago, which is a game where it has numbers on the backside of the totem.
It's I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Tiki.
Nope. Taktiki.
Taktiki. Close enough.
That's an abstract.
It's a game that is an abstract. And there's also there's one, I don't know the name for it, but it was about light rays and beaming around. The idea of a hidden, you're moving,
laser one.
Yeah, well, you're moving pieces into a center area, just like you're doing with Taktiki, and you have hidden information. And the hidden information is the number on the back or the roll of the piece you're moving.
And you would call Taktiki an abstract?
I would call Taktiki an abstract.
So that's interesting. So that's a little bit of a hole in the perfect information conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay. So I think like these types of conversations, like I think, are similar to like what genre is a film, right? It's like it is a collective opinion of like the people who play your games, or just like the general culture of board gamers in general. And so I think it ticks enough of the boxes of what's like traditionally called an abstract, and that's what like pushes me over the edge with it. But I think we, as we try to do with our games, is like we try to like blend lots of different types of things together. In this case, it's like asymmetry. You make it approachable. Do an abstract with theme, and like bring all those together. And so like we're trying to muddy the waters, which is why this is kind of like a difficult conversation, which is like intentional. All we care about is it a good game? Is it beautiful? Like does it have a strong art?
Oh, those are totally different videos.
Yeah, no, they're totally different things. But it's just like, and then we just throw this thing out there, and like, where does it land? And I do think the community has as much of a responsibility of like putting like. We made this thing. We put it out there and let the people decide. Like, what does this read to as you? Because we want to be honest about like our games. We want you, like, if you hate asymmetric games, like, we're not gonna lie to you until it's not asymmetry. Like, if you hate like these types of games that could be considered an abstract, like, I don't want to like muddy the water in that sense.
One point I do want to touch
upon
upon in terms of you listed a few things, and I'm glad you touched upon the grid. I was going to get to that one. The perfect information is one I didn't think of. I mostly agree with you. Taktiki, I think, falls under exception to rule for the most part. The one I would touch upon as well is, what would you say is the primary, not exclusive, the primary player count mode of Mythic Mischief?
You should definitely learn it at 2.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah.
So like the initial game of it was 2-player. Now, for what it's worth, just to be very clear, had a ton of fun playing at a 4. I plan on playing a 4, and I know you have a 3-player mode as well.
Yep. I prefer 4.
Do you have a solo mode coming, I believe?
There is a solo mode
coming.
Yep.
But the primary mechanism and mode of it as a 2-player game also kind of pushes it into that, it's an abstract. Abstracts are 2-player games very often. You were about to say something?
And I don't think this is a universal element of the conversation, but it definitely does inform what I start viewing as an abstract versus as something else. And it would be, to some degree, the weight of the game or the perceived weight of the game. Now, it's not that, for instance, this is going to be a big box with a lot of asymmetry and a lot of opportunity for learning and customization and exploration, but still, when I think about the puzzle I'm solving, and most things that I call abstract, the puzzle I'm solving, I can kind of carry in my brain. I understand everything about what I'm doing, and it becomes a challenge of outwitting my opponent.
Right.
That's one reason why Tactiki, while it has non-perfect information,
it still has that concept.
It still has that head-to-head, that play of it's simple enough that I can carry everything in my head. I'm never checking the rules, and I'm playing against you across the table. That's what this felt like.
That might have sold that for me.
Which aspect? That it is or isn't?
That it is, because when I am playing Mythic Mischief against Zach, it is a battle of wits, and that while the games play extremely differently and I have very different feelings, but like when I play Zach in chess, it's still a battle of wits. And for that reason, I might be more solidly in the abstract.
Well, so let's go the exact opposite route now. Now that we have you convinced, can you tell me all the things? Let's start with you again.
Yeah.
Tell me all the things that make it not an abstract.
If I'm going to go through a couple. So
the
perfect information, there are a few moments of not perfect information. What's on the after lunch card, for instance.
Sure.
You would never have something like that in chess, where it's like there's new information.
There's 2 phases to the game. There's going to be a card that gets revealed. It's the second phase of the game.
Changes the puzzle.
Changes the
Changes the
puzzle.
puzzle slightly.
Things can spawn in areas you didn't plan for.
I think the theme, like when I think of abstract, I do think a grid and some tokens.
Yes.
And that's just very different than from what the
Tactiki as well would have that very much. It's just a grid and tokens. I agree. Theme. There's definitely there's a high degree of thematic overlay to Mythic Mischief. Absolutely. Can you paste on a different theme? Likely yes, but there's definitely a degree of thematic overlay.
The Tonekeeper, actually, I think is a weird. I've never seen something like an abstract game, because it is manipulatable as a programmed element of the game, but the characters are controlling it, and for some reason it just doesn't feel like an abstract because of that.
You're right.
I wouldn't agree that it doesn't feel like an abstract because of that. I would argue that there's a vein that you're hitting when it comes to an abstract game that feels very unique. I hit on this multiple times in the gameplay that I did with you. It's the nature of being able to manipulate every level of the game board. I can manipulate the terrain, I can manipulate myself, I can manipulate my opponent, and I can manipulate the AI or what you were referencing.
Yeah.
That feels unique in an abstract. It doesn't feel like it sets it apart from
That's nice. I like that approach.
There's 2 other aspects I'll touch upon that I don't think are common. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Number 1 is going to be the fact that the game has a few ways of ending, but you can get to X number of points, which does feel abstract, but you can just have a timer where the game is over.
Yeah.
Abstracts don't typically have that.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I just don't think they do.
I'd say it's less common.
And the second thing is going to be, we touched upon it already, you have asymmetric player powers.
Yep.
This is like, we've seen this in games like Santorini, we've seen it in Ragnaroks, but like it's an exception. Abstracts don't typically have player powers.
And the nature or degree to which my simplicity conversation is right on the edge with this game. Honestly, if you had upgraded cards or abilities or like swords that you could use or gear that you could collect, I would stop thinking of this as that.
Yeah.
And I told you I didn't want it to go any deeper because it was right at the level where I was enjoying the puzzle and I didn't have more stuff I had to handle. The asymmetry feels accurate to the characters, and it feels like you're playing something unique without pulling so far away that I feel like I'm playing a dungeon crawl or an RPG or getting into some other type of puzzle.
Totally.
Which I think is unique. I think it's very unique. It is still an abstract.
So that's fair.
I think an interesting question, an interesting way to approach it is, let's say, Jesse, if someone said to you, I don't like abstract games, would you still recommend Mythic Mischief?
Yes, and I would challenge them on their presumption that they don't like abstract games.
Okay. And if
Immediately.
And if somebody said, I do like abstract games, would you think Mythic Mischief is more likely to be enjoyed by them?
I would probably advise them of the elements that make it less like other abstracts they've played, but I would recommend it.
I mean, I agree with you on both counts of those. I agree with you completely. I think that has enough elements that it might hit those notes, but I'd be like, okay, well, hold up. It has abstract stuff in it, but it also has like players, asymmetrical, whatever.
Yeah.
It has a timed blitz mode, which arguably could be considered a chess clock to if you want to get down that path. But like, there are enough different elements. I'd be like, hey, I hear you like abstracts. What if the abstracts have a bunch of like monsters in a school, attacking each other while the tome keepers try? Like, you have to really warn people.
What if you can throw walls and you're playing a creature that is like a zombie and your opponent's a vampire and both of you operate different, but it's the same puzzle? And if they say that sounds interesting, well, that's sold.
And the same aspect as well. The first question is, if they don't like abstracts, I think there's enough things in Mythic Mischief that may sell them.
Yeah.
So where do we end up with this?
I think it is an abstract, personally. I think it is a highly thematic one, and I'd be hard pressed on, for me, and I need to do research, and I'd love to see comments that establish something that I don't know about yet, because there's a lot of stuff in the space I don't know. But for me, the combination of those 4 manipulation areas is a thing that I think in my gaming experience is innovative here. And so I'm, I don't know. I think it's a really cool abstract, and I think it has a place where others aren't competing with it.
Awesome.
So, interesting. What about you two?
I think it was just your Battle of Wits headspace thing that really convinced me. So I mean,
see, now I'm stuck here trying to think of all the non-abstract games that have that.
Yeah.
There's something. I know there's something.
Yeah. I don't know, that like you just touched on the feeling, and like the feeling of games is something we think a lot about.
No, I disagree with you. Is Hanamakoji an abstract? I don't know which ones you've played. Hanamakoji, Battle Line, Air, Land, and Sea. I don't think those are abstracts, but they very much have the Battle of.
But is it just that Mythic Mischief is almost, it has some of all those. The Venn diagram of Mythic.
My definition wasn't that it was a perfect universal for abstract. It was, this is a component that leads to me calling something abstract versus other.
I'm not arguing with you. Austin latched onto that.
I did latch onto
boom,
it.
That makes it an abstract.
No, it was all of the other things.
It's a sum. It's a sum.
Like we have a Venn diagram of perfect information, of the grid, of the feeling of the Battle of Wits, and all of that. Like, I was thinking we could still be outside of here, but the Battle of Wits pulled me to the Venn diagram of the center being abstract.
Here's where I think personally, I haven't done a ton of personally on this yet, but I think where I personally end up on Mythic Mischief.
He's gonna say it's not an abstract. Watch him.
Sort of.
Darn it!
No.
You can't have all of us on your page and then switch.
No. And then here's why you're all wrong.
Here's what I answer. I think Mythic Mischief feels like an abstract. But if you asked me what my favorite abstract is, and for context, I really like this game. If you ask me what my favorite abstract is, I think I would still easily pick TAC, which is my favorite abstract game, because I don't think this. When I'm comparing them, I'm not comparing them in the same genre. It's not that I like TAC better than this. It's that I think it feels like an abstract, but if you ask me what my favorite abstract is, I don't think Mythic Mischief would even be on the list.
So where would you place it?
It feels like an abstract.